Hello everyone and welcome back to my aviation channel. In this video I'll be talking about alternate requirements and fuel, because we're flying from Paris to Frankfurt and we're going to divert in Frankfurt to Düsseldorf. Just the other week I had to divert myself, and it can be quite challenging if you don't know what you're doing, and I will demonstrate how you would divert to an alternate airport. Of course, before taking off you already know where is your alternate airport, how is the weather, and how much fuel do you need. And we are going to take a look here in a second. Welcome to the flight deck of this Boeing 777, and we're going to take a look at our flight plan. This is where we can find all our information regarding fuel and alternate airports. You can see Paris to Frankfurt. This is our scheduled flight, and we have a alternate here, Echo Delta Delta Lima, which is Düsseldorf in Germany. You can see also flight level steps, and they are planning us on flight level 230 on our way if we have to divert to Düsseldorf. If we scroll down to the fuel part, so here you can see the trip fuel from to Frankfurt, which is equal to around 14,000 pounds and a time of 59 minutes. Then we have our alternate fuel, and you can see the 3-letter identifier for Düsseldorf, which is 8.4 or 8,400 pounds of fuel. This is our alternate fuel, meaning if we have to divert from Frankfurt to Düsseldorf, we are going to need roughly 8,400 pounds of fuel, and it's going to take us 37 minutes. Then we have our final reserve fuel. The rule is 30 minutes of holding fuel, which is equal to 5,600 pounds here on the 777. So alternate fuel and final reserve fuel, if we add these two numbers, this is the number we will put in our FMC under the number final reserve. You can also see it here, FMC info FinRes plus alternate equal to 13,900 pounds. If we go over here, we can see reserves 13.8, which is equal to this number here. We could round it up 13.9, make it more accurate. So this is where you enter your final reserve fuel, basically alternate and final reserve fuel. This number is really important to us. When we reach Frankfurt airport and we are below that number, we obviously have a problem, because this should remain in the fuel tanks all the time when we arrive into Frankfurt. We can also take a look at the progress page, and we can see destination Frankfurt. And this is our estimated fuel at the time of arrival. So it's estimating 18,000 pounds on arrival in Frankfurt. And this is good so far, because if we take a look again at our performance page and our reserves, which is 13.9, we can see we have 4,100 pounds extra fuel. So this is basically the margin when we arrive in Frankfurt. This is time we still have left in our fuel tanks before we have to make a decision if we want to divert, or if we have to divert to Düsseldorf, or if we're committing to land in Frankfurt if the weather is acceptable. If the number here would be 12,000, we would have too little fuel. So we would have to fuel up more, because the airplane is predicting a higher fuel burn or whatever it is upon arrival in Frankfurt. Also, we have this alternate function here on the FMC, and you can see alternate page, and there's already Düsseldorf selected in big letters, because this is our flight plan alternate. Of course, on our way to Düsseldorf, or to Frankfurt I should say, we have options for other alternate airports where we can divert to if something would happen mid-flight. And we're climbing out, passing flight level 110 on our way to Frankfurt. And the progress page is always a good measure to check the fuel. Now you can see estimated fuel upon arrival in Frankfurt is 17.7, which is still above our reserve fuel. So this is a good sign for now. So we have a slight margin if we have to fly a go around or go into the holding for whatever reason. We're approaching flight level 370. You can see the speed enough path, and we've gotten a direct to IMCOM, which is the first waypoint of our terminal arrival procedure, and because of that we saved some fuel. Now you can see our estimated arrival fuel is 19.6, so we gained an extra 1,600 pounds. And that happens a lot. If you get shortcuts, of course, this number will increase, but of course if you have to fly around thunderstorms, this number most likely will decrease because you fly more than the intended track. So we want to prepare for our arrival in Frankfurt, and of course we would always prepare mentally if we would have to divert. In our case, like I talked about it, diversion would be to Düsseldorf, and the first step of course is check the weather. You check the weather at your arrival airport, Frankfurt, and you check the weather at all the alternate airports you want to divert to. In our case it's just Düsseldorf because it's a short flight, and we want to make sure here on the alternate page we have selected Düsseldorf, and you could see Düsseldorf estimated time of arrival 9:30 Zulu, so 21 minutes. If we would divert right now, it would take us 21 minutes to Düsseldorf, and we would arrive with 24,000 pounds of fuel. And this number is quite important because of course we want to make sure it's above zero, so we know that we can make it to Düsseldorf. But on the other hand, this number should always be above our final reserve fuel, the 30 minutes I talked about earlier. I'll show you here again. So if we scroll up here again, final reserve fuel 5,600 pounds, 30 minutes. That is what we need in our tanks at all times. If we drop below that fuel number, it would be a emergency, or otherwise called Mayday fuel. So as long as this number is above 5.6, it is still looking quite good. On the other hand, when planning an alternate airport, I would insert it into the fixed page just to get a good reference, and you can see it will pop up here, Düsseldorf, and right now it is only 106 nautical miles to this airport. I will make a 120 nautical mile ring around it. 120 nautical mile usually is the distance we need to descend from a flight level like 370 or 400. And then just for a visual reference, I would draw 25 nautical miles, which is representing the minimum sector altitude. Minimum sector altitude gives us obstacle clearance 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle. So if we are above the minimum sector altitude within this circle, you know you are safe. The same I've drawn here in Frankfurt. This is the NSA, or basically the 25 nautical mile circle around Frankfurt. And of course you can get the weather real handy here if you click the COM button. Let's see, you click flight information, ATIS request, and so this is probably going to be some random weather. You enter EDDF for Frankfurt, click it here, and then you can choose the source. Let's just try PNBG, and then you hit send, and most likely this will give you the real-time weather, I think. And I set something completely different in real life. You can see it's overcast, so thick clouds, but I just wanted to show you here. And it sounds like we got a COM message. So we hit new messages, and there you can see the Frankfurt information Gulf at time 0920 Okay, doesn't really make sense because it's not even 9:20 yet. So just for the sake of it, so information Gulf, time 9:20 Zulu, surface wind 180, 2 knots, visibility more than 10, clouds few 800, temperature 9, dew point 6, QNH 1022. So this weather in real life would be perfectly suitable to go into Frankfurt. But of course the weather is going to change here because I wanted to show you how to divert to Düsseldorf. And we're approaching our top of descent here, so let me reset our MCP altitude. go down to flight level 200 for now. That would be suitable weather for our destination. Of course, we also want to check how is our alternate airport, because if the alternate has bad weather too, it's not a suitable alternate, because the weather at the alternate obviously has to be above weather minima, so we can fly an approach into there. So let's check it out. Send. And you can see it's sent. And in a second it's gonna be a comm message, hopefully, so we can see our ATIS. And then we're clear. Income 1 Alpha arrival procedure. I already checked the waypoints. Okay, here we go. Comm message. So we click on new message and we check for Düsseldorf. Information delta, same time. And wind 180, 9 degrees, visibility more than 10, broken 1200, and broken 1800, overcast 2900, temperature 10, dew point 7, QNH 1021. Okay. Since I know Düsseldorf, and I know that in Düsseldorf we have at least a category 1 approach, we can easily plan this airport as an alternate, because you can see the lowest clouds are broken 1200 feet. And I'm just taking a look here on my approach plate for ILS 23 left in Düsseldorf, and we even have a category 3. But the category 1 approach, if we take that into consideration, we need 340 feet for our minimums and RVR of 550 feet. The clouds are way above our minimum. And I just want to demonstrate to you how it could be like. For example, maybe there's a huge thunderstorm in Frankfurt and ATC will instruct us to hold over MGOT. So we go to our holding key and you can see this box, and I will paste MGOT, insert it in here. I will take a look on my chart, and the inbound is 1112, and from the inbound it's gonna be left-hand turns, and there's gonna be a restriction, flight level 110 and maximum 280 knots. Okay, 280, flight level 110, confirm and execute. You can see there is a holding over MGOT. Let's descend flight level 110. And now we're gonna stay in the holding for as long as ATC will tell us. And it's important to check the fuel, of course, during the holding, because you always want to have a good visual picture. How much fuel you have on board, how much fuel does the FMC tell you you're going to arrive in Frankfurt. Can you divert? How long are you able to fly the holding before you run out of fuel? Okay, we're about to approach MGOT. It's 6 miles to go. Alright, and you will see that the number here will decrease. The longer we are going to hold, obviously our predicted arrival fuel in Frankfurt will decrease because we are burning more fuel in the holding. We can also select the holding key, active route 1 hold at MGOT, and you can see the FMC is predicting that we have, okay, now it's shifted to 25 minutes. So we have 25 minutes of holding time before we have to divert. So this gives you a good measure. So it's already calculating how much time we have until we have to divert. And as you recall, if we check our performance page, our reserves are 13.9. When you see that the fuel is approaching this number, 13.9, this is the latest, you have to divert to Düsseldorf. Unless you can be sure that you make it into Frankfurt. But today it's not going to happen, so latest at 13.9 we have to divert to Düsseldorf. So we're still flying holdings, holding after holding. This is probably the third lap, and we still have 20.1 in our fuel tank, and like I talked about it, 13.9, let's call it 14, is the number we latest want to start to divert to Düsseldorf. And I just want to take a second and explain why do pilots divert in the first place. So it could be weather, the weather is below minimums, or the crosswind is above our maximum crosswind component, or there's a thunderstorm and it's just unsafe to fly into an airport like that under those weather conditions. Then of course it can be an airport closure. For example, if you only have like one runway, like in Stuttgart there's only one runway. If there's an airplane stuck on the runway for whatever reason after an emergency landing, whatever, the runway is closed, obviously you cannot fly into an airport when the runway is closed. So that could be also one of the reasons why we'd have to divert to our alternate airport. And of course, lately with all the war going on in the Middle East, sometimes when you fly, for example, to Tel Aviv and there's military action, it might be better to divert to an alternate airfield since you do not want to fly into an active war zone. So that could also be a reason why airlines divert to alternate airfields. And I have no idea what this airplane is doing, but it's doing a terrible job in flying this holding. Of course, during your holding you would talk to ATC and they want to know how long can you hold. For example, we would tell them, yeah, about 9 minutes, whatever the case is. And of course, they want to know what are you going to do, like what is your alternate. So we would talk to them and we could tell them, yeah, we want to hold here for the next 9 minutes and then we would like to divert to Düsseldorf if the weather is not improving here in Frankfurt. So they know what our intentions are, so they can pre-plan and we can pre-plan and there are no big surprises. That always helps. And let's just play around. You can see we got hold available 9 minutes, our fuel is 19.4, and if we just type in, for example, 17 on the reserves, if we hit the hold, it's telling us 0, but actually we still have a margin of 2.4. But you can see this is not 100% accurate, but this number will shift according to what you insert into your reserve here on the performance init page. And we're back to 14 and now it says 8 minutes. Now 5. So this is, I don't know, doesn't seem really reliable, but in the actual aircraft this is a real handy feature. Sometimes ATC even gives you an expected further clearance time, and right now we have 9:37. We type in 9:50 just to see if we can make that restriction. And so if we type in an expected further clearance time at 9:50 in 12 minutes, it says 0, so it's telling us, yeah, we're not able to hold until 9:50, so we would have to divert before 9:50 Zulu. If we delete it, now we can see we got 4 minutes. Okay, let's just say there's no chance we're gonna make it into Frankfurt because the airport is closed. And we're still our reserve fuel of 14, so we still got a margin of 4.8. But we talked to ATC and we told them we want to divert to Düsseldorf. We hit the alternate key. We press this prompt and we can see Echo Delta Delta Lima alternate. And there's different methods. So there's a direct to, overhead MGOT, and a offset way to proceed to our alternate. There's even an engine out option which will give you the fuel figures if you would fly single engine to there. You can see the difference is 3,400 pounds because you burn more fuel with one engine compared to 2 engines. We go to alternate page, Düsseldorf direct to, and here's the key, divert now. And now we see the execute prompt and you can immediately see the white line which will take us to Düsseldorf. And of course sometimes ATC will give you waypoints. So we have of course a filed flight plan from Frankfurt to Düsseldorf. So we can see we have a departure which we're not going to fly since we're in the middle of the air. Then maroon, RPEG, and so on. Just for demonstrating, we can type in maroon And if we click it here, this waypoint gets sequenced before Düsseldorf Airport. And airway Yankee 152, Yankee 152, and then it was RPEG, for example. Okay, now we got some waypoints. If ATC would have confirmed the route, we can execute it. And now you can see we are diverting to Düsseldorf. Alright, and of course we would ask for a climb clearance. So let's just try flight level 190 for now. Gonna click it, thrust ref, VNAV speed. And now we're climbing flight level 190 and we're diverting to Düsseldorf. And now we have time to prepare. So we'll be ILS 23 left. Excuse me, so we're just gonna do ILS 23 left. Make it easy. Execute, and then we can check all the waypoints. So pretty much it's maroon, RPEG, and then it's almost straight in. And now it's yelling insufficient fuel. So 12.8, which is below our reserves. That's why it's telling us insufficient fuel. But we have to update it on the performance perf init page because reserve is still 14.0, but like we talked about it previously, our final reserve fuel is actually 5.6. So let's update it, 5.6. And this should go away. There we go. So now we just have to monitor that this number will not drop below 5.6. Otherwise it would be a Mayday fuel. And now of course the preparation starts for Düsseldorf. We expect here runway 23 right. And already have the minimum set 370. And let's check the red nav page. So the ILS 109.3 and a final course. It says 232. It's 230 on my chart. That's good enough. Okay, so I connected all the waypoints and we're just gonna fly onto the ILS 23 right. And we can erase Frankfurt since we're not going there anymore. And you can see distance to Düsseldorf is 66 miles. And now we have to prepare for our landing. So we got 16.8 in our fuel tanks and estimated arrival fuel is 12.5. So it is 4.2. So 4.2 minus the gross weight. So it's 89. Let's call it 389. And planning flaps 25. So this is our final approach speed 133, flaps 25. Of course we add 5 knots usually for a wind additive, so 138 is our final approach speed. We got auto brake set, minimum set, speed set, all looking good, and we're above our final reserve fuel. Let's just ask for a descent, so we'll just stay in flight level change. And we're on a base leg onto waypoint Regno, where the approach starts in Düsseldorf, ILS 23 right, and the fuel is 15.6, looking good. Even our estimated arrival fuel at 14.8 is way above our required 5.6 final reserve fuel we need at Düsseldorf. So even if we face some complications here in Düsseldorf, there's still time for a go around, and we still would be above Mayday fuel. So we're really safe. Okay, last part of the video, I didn't want to exclude it. It's just coming into Düsseldorf runway 23 right. So we're turning into final, heading 271, going to vertical speed, and I set my speed to 220, got the flaps out to 1, and here we're established on the localizer. And I will arm the approach mode here in a second. There we go, approach mode, speed 210, and we're going to flaps 5. Glide slope is captured. I adjust my speed to 200. We're on the glide slope, descending down. Speed 190, and we're about 9 miles from the runway. I need some speed brake. And there we go, speed 180,
Flaps 15, put all the lights on, cleared for landing, gear down, speed 170, around 2,000 feet above the runway. Armor speed brakes, flaps 20, speed 150, all looking good. And there we go, landing checklist, flaps are extending to flaps 25, landing checklist complete, final speed is 138, and if you can look outside, you can clearly see the 2 runways, so we're visual, and we're about to get to 1,000 feet, we're stable, we can continue the approach. Gonna let the airplane fly itself, so it's gonna be an auto land, and you can see on the PFD it's land free, rollout flare is armed. So the airplane is able to perform a auto land. And let's just watch, we're approaching the minimums, but we already saw the runway, so we continue. And it's coming a little bit high, but it's still within the touchdown zone. There we go, we touched down. I adjusted auto brakes to 4, then reversers, 60 knots, and we're coming to a stop here. Auto brakes off. We can turn off the runway, and we made it safely to Düsseldorf, and we still have 14.2 in our fuel tank. And we're vacating the runway. You can hear the autopilot because the autopilot stayed on the whole time on the runway because it was an auto land, and you have to turn it off manually after landing. That's about it. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you could learn something, and I'll see you on the next video.